Hello, welcome to Tales from the Shed.
Once
we
more.
were looking at doing a couple of things today, and then we've both woken up and we're going to do something different because we're just feeling a little bit low on
meh, actually.
Bit meh. That's the great word, isn't it? It's just a little bit low on energy, a little bit low on enthusiasm, and we were just talking about why, and then we were also saying, oh, my friend feels this and someone else feels this, and you were saying somebody else was saying, why am I feeling like this? And we all had the odd days. So we thought we'd, with no plan and no aim, we thought we'd discuss it and see whether it resonates with you and whether you get this too. But it's sometimes we feel down, like we work really hard and it's probably a bit of tiredness, but is there a bigger thing? Is it something else going on?
Is there something else going on? Because I feel like I've been a bit low in energy for a kind of couple of weeks. It's like I've been productive in little bursts, but then I kind of almost go back to the default setting, which is just feeling a bit there.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going, why is this? Because it doesn't feel like that's my normal state.
No, and I was talking to somebody I know actually, and they're very into the moon states, I don't know very much about this, so I'm going to say mad things, but it's like Mercury retrograde and these things I hear that sound fascinating, and I do make a mental note to read more about it and then I forget, but it feels like there's a lot of energy that comes from the moon, from the astrology, from the planets. And when I know we're at a spring equinox, so maybe it's a big powerful thing. Have you heard much about that?
No, I haven't, but it is like that whole thing of, it does feel like there's a bigger change going on than it's just the end of March.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like
not just the switch into summer.
Yeah. It's so, because spring can be one of those times when it is a changeover. So we've come into the end of winter. We're kind of feeling like, okay, we've had the kind of low light and we've had, you know, the temperatures and all the rest of it, and now we're getting a bit more hopeful, and spring is often a kind of rebirth, and it's interesting for us because of course we've gone through and made this big decision that we're going to go back to face and do this retreat and all this kind of stuff, but in a way I still feel like we still feel like we're pushing that.
Do you think there's a little bit of fear left? I mean, I know when I obviously had to switch all my consultations to Zoom, and then whereas I've been working for 22 years face to face, Zoom then took a bit of getting used to and finding that was working. And then I had a client book face to face, and I was like sweaty palms the day before. It was like, oh my goodness, how's this going to work? And it was almost like my very, very first consultation a long while ago. So is it that we're beginning to go back into the world a bit more? People want to go back in the world places, and because there's this zeitgeist of fear that was created.
We've been living under that for like 3 or 4 years now.
And whatever your political views on whether it was worth it or not, it was certainly there that people were terrified. And I'm seeing now with different things happening that people were saying their granny sat in the front of the house, right at the back of the hall, and the grandson sat right by the gate and read her poetry on her birthday because everyone was so terrified. I mean, do you think some of that's sitting there?
Maybe it's also to do with the fact there's a bit of anger now, because it feels like the people who set the rules didn't keep the rules. So we're feeling like this big sense of anger and unfairness. And, you know, I can't imagine what it would be like for people who did stick by the rules and had really horrible experiences where they couldn't be with their relatives who died and all of that kind of stuff, to find out the people who set those rules, that you kind of almost feel like, well, if you set the rules, then you should be doing it. You should be obeying it. I was angry at the
rules at the time.
I know, whether you were angry at the rules or not. It's like, you know, but if you kind of took it on trust, you kind of thought, if they were doing the best that they thought at the time and all the rest of it, whether they were mistaken or not, if they were doing the best that they thought at the time and they were following that, but now we find that's not the case. So I feel like there's quite a lot of, you know, this turmoil. It's like being in a kind of tumble dryer in a way.
Do you think people feel a bit like they're what's the word? Unfixed. Not they're not grounded, but there's a grounding to knowing this is what's happening and why. And then all of a sudden it's like I don't know where to go. I don't know who, and there's a lot of information. And I know we deal a lot with menopause and women, but there's a lot of information. If you do this, then, or if you do this, then, and people don't know which way to turn now. Perhaps people are a bit unsure, and when you're unsure and fearful, you don't do anything.
Yeah, there's a temptation of that, and you just kind of, and then you kind of go into that spiral. You don't have the resilience to kind of wake up and think, I feel a bit crap. So for me, it would be, and it was, you know, interesting because I did swim, you know, in the sea, you know, which is really, it's March, that's unbelievably early, you know, ridiculous. And it was like, it was great on the day, but it didn't kind of stick. So it's almost feeling like there are things that I would do normally that would lift my spirits, that would do that, and they kind of work up to extent, but they don't.
They drop.
So you drop. So then the tendency is, if you do that, you get into that spiral where you just feel a bit worse and a bit worse and worse. And like you say, and then you become incapable of doing things. But I quite like the thing that you said. What was it about? Do your best. Do your best.
My lovely yoga teacher would say, do your best and leave the rest. And it wasn't in that half a sixpence Disney sort of way of like, do your best and don't worry about it. He had a very strong reason that we don't always see the fruits of our labour, efforts or whatever. We don't see all of it. Providing you've done your absolute best, you sort of give that energy back to the universe, who then takes that energy and might do something slightly different with it. So, when we were talking earlier, and I was trying to think of something as an example that might illustrate what he was saying, and I could only think really of sort of political based examples of things like the suffragettes perhaps, or people that looked at stopping child labour and how they fought at that beginning but didn't always see. So they did their best, and they could have been quite, what is the point of all of this? It all seems to be going in the wrong direction. But actually perhaps we should take on trust that if we're doing our best, it will add into that energy mix of moving us forward. So if we look at the universe as having energy, being in this energy world, and I think the energy, as we were saying, is a little bit fearful, a little bit, we don't know which way to turn, so we're all a bit stuck. But if we just keep going on that, we take on trust that energy will gradually lighten, even if we're not feeling it
right
Thursday,
now,
you know, and it's Tuesday or whatever, and you think, well, I tried all day Tuesday and Wednesday and I'm still down. It's perhaps still going with that belief that if we're knocked back, we can, the universe will gradually turn that fearful, dark, I don't know where to go energy into a more positive movement forward. And
it is sometimes you need to say, is this part of that picture of, we're very often hard on ourselves. If we haven't fixed it today, then we feel we must be at fault. But it's almost like, I suppose, when I was doing the art and about the plastic stuff, and when there are things that you do where it says go out and do a 1 minute beach clean and all the rest of it, and you could say, well, that's pointless. But is it, if everybody on the planet did a 1 minute beach clean, would it then be part of that shift and kind of movement? But it's like, so on a personal level, it's almost like, so if I get up in the morning and I feel a bit meh, I think, okay, so what am I able to do today? Maybe I am able to, maybe I've got a Zoom meeting or two, or maybe I've got to send a couple of emails, and you know what, that's going to be enough.
Because we do have this, again, going to that energy, that law of attraction. And I love the law of attraction because people think it only works if you're spiritual or a believer, but actually it doesn't. You know, you look at someone like Alan Sugar, who doesn't strike me as that sort of person, but he's always so positive and he just attracts loads. So you don't have to be spiritual, it works. And I think it is that confidence in, I have to keep going when I don't feel it. Because that moves these wheels slowly and gradually, that we won't necessarily see the end, but it is important, is this my best? Do your best. And if this is my best today, great. If just thinking I just need to read rubbish, sit on the settee and enjoy it, if that's your best, that's great. So I think I think I hold in my mind, do your best and leave the rest, but not in a Disney way. Is that a catchphrase?
It is. That's quite good. So that's what we're saying. If you've been feeling a bit meh, or any time when you feel like nothing I'm doing is making any difference, just do your best.
Do your best.
Leave the rest.
And hand it into the universe and say, that's my end result.
That's my best.
Could you mix that with whatever else you got?
So next time we might be feeling a bit more excited, but for the moment, do your best.